So, as I was introduced, Francis Montemurro from Vuvio, that's where I work currently, but prior to that, I spent 30 years working at DuPont. And my whole career has been manufacturing. So that's all I really know. So now I'm working with a software company. How does that work together? So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my journey. And over the last 4 years, I've spent a lot of time visiting a lot of customers in manufacturing. And that's what I wanna share today. I believe there's a big gap. If we're driving for operational excellence, I think the gap truly exists around the operator competency. So why do I say that? Well, for me, operational excellence is about driving the assets and the people to perform in a standard executable way so we can achieve the desired results. And as you all probably know, how many people have spent time in manufacturing? Okay, so many of you realize we've spent a lot of money over the years in manufacturing, the last 10, 15 years, around our assets. And we know when our assets we have vibration analysis, it gives us so much data now, we probably can't look at all of it, whether it's vibration data, temperature data, etc. We have a lot of data out there on the assets. But what about the people? So again, as I spent these 4 years visiting customers and refining and chemicals, one thing that was really highlighted and a little bit of a surprise is operator competency doesn't necessarily match with operator qualification. So what a chemical operator, if they're qualified in a job, that means they qualified, but they are not 100% competent. What I've seen is when an operator qualifies, they know between 40 and 60% of the job. The rest of that comes through experience. Now the challenge with that is coming through an experience is they're learning from somebody else. And we all know as humans, everyone learns a little differently, and how I may learn to work that job is going to be different from the next person. We're going to talk more about that. So closing that gap on competency causes a lot of variation in the process. So another thing we've done in the industry is we've automated a lot, and we've spent a lot of money on reliability. Well, that in itself causes a challenge for the human. With automation, we end up not giving that human or that operator the opportunity to work in the process. So this was a real life example to me, the automation. Prior to leaving DuPont and joining Vuvio, I was responsible for, one of the units I was responsible at the plant was a polymer unit. And anytime that polymer unit was ready to start up, the board operator would hit start. And there were 12 steps that had to be achieved in the automated startup of that polymer plant. However, when we got to step 5 and it turned red, that operator's looking around like, what do we do? Where's Nick? Nick's the only one who knows how to go out there and address it. So we had gotten to a point in that polymer plant where the operators really weren't sure how to operate that plant. So we spent the next 18 months going back to the basics and explaining to them basically the foundational operational discipline around operating a polymer plant, because they had lost their way when it came to operating that polymer plant. So that's the challenge, that's the paradox with automation. And then the same thing with reliability. Been out to several customers, call them technical gas customers, some of these units that support the larger refineries. Well, their reliability is 96, 98%. They have operators in their unit that have been there for 4 years and have never had to start up the unit due to shifts, etc. So when it comes time for them to execute a startup, they've never seen it before. They were qualified 4 years earlier. So again, that's a challenge around reliability. So McKinsey published, something that's very applicable today and what's going on in the industry. Technology and automation is not going to solve reliability. And you see the other comment that 40 to 60% of the field operator tasks you cannot automate. So the operators are going to be there. So what are we doing to build their competency? So I mentioned that, I spend my time with Vuvio now, and I'm not going to try to sell Vuvio. I'm just going to tell you what we do. We go out, and part of our process to develop a simulation is to walk the procedure with the customer subject matter expert. So we're going to talk about procedures. If I look at some data in the industry, the reason why plants fail to run at desired rates uptimes, achieve their desired OEE, yes, there's a big supply chain component. Changeovers, no demand, etc. But if you look at where we've spent a lot of money in the industry in the last 10, 15 years around equipment reliability, that's no longer a significant issue. The issue is procedures and human execution. So it's marrying the human to the procedure, making sure the procedures are accurate, and making sure they're executed as desired. That's one data point from the Ron Moore group. Another data point is out of the abnormal situation management, there we go, where they collect the data. This was back in 2017, 2018, and you can see 40% of the process upsets were caused by human, 40% were caused by equipment. But then they broke down that equipment piece to another level. And you see the significant reason why equipment failures are occurring. Something that we probably don't do a really good job in industry when we're doing a root cause analysis is to ask, why is that equipment failing? The data here shows it's because of human involvement. And that's what their summary chart ends up saying. 51% of the reasons is because of procedures not being followed. And I don't blame that all on the operator. I don't think operators are out there trying to do a bad job. We have data to support that. And then 40% is because procedures just not right. So I see we have data. So again, visiting these customers, looking at their procedures. I analyzed about 300 of their procedures. Most of them startup shutdown equipment swaps, about 90% of them. And they have ambiguities in there, generalizations. What do I mean by that? Well, the procedure will say, line up the pump. Does every operator know what it means to line up the pump? Close all the drain valves. Well, how many drain valves are there? Are there 2 or are there 15? And we see that time after time after time. That's the ambiguities. I'm going to show you an example of that. But another challenge that, it's just become accepted in the industry is practice does not match procedure. There's procedures that are very well written, mostly by engineers, but then when the operator goes to execute, they all develop their own way of executing that procedure. And that little bit of variation is significant because it's the old whisper down the line. I'm going to train that next operator, and that next operator is going to train the next operator. And the degree of variation in procedures is surprising. So let me give you an example of ambiguities. What you see on your left is the actual procedure line for an operator that is working on starting up a reactor. Talking about flushing valves, or opening valves, get a good flush, etc. One line on it. Again, I mentioned with Fluvio, we walked that process with the subject matter expert. We asked the subject matter expert, we see this one line, what does it mean? What does the operator have to do? By the time we got done with that one step, we ended up with 53 actions the operator had to actually do. While he was doing those 53 actions, they had to interact with 15 different valves. So you can see why they have an issue with poisoning the reactor. It's ambiguous. Another thing along the line is we create an action checklist for the operator to then follow. One action per step. So we took that one example I showed you and created 53 actions, kind of like a pilot checklist. But that's all across industry. If I look at all our projects, on average, each line item in a procedure, on average, is about 2.5 action steps. So again, we're asking our operators to know how to start up a unit, start up a reactor, shut something down successfully and safely, but we're not telling them all the steps they have to do to be successful. We coined that as procedure clarity. So what is procedure clarity? Well, it's giving them clear, concise actions. One action per step. What do you need me to do first, then second, to be successful? Creating a action checklist that's standard. It's not reliant on who trained me. It's a standard execution plan. That we start up the reactor the same way every time. We start up the cogen unit the same way every time. We hit those time points, at hour 6, we are where we're supposed to be. Giving that operator the ability to visualize what they do, that's where we bring simulation to the table, where the operator then looks at his action step or her action step and can see what it looks like in the field. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. And then being able to practice. This learning pyramid's been in industry for a long time. But giving an operator an updated procedure, whether it's written, digitized, they can take with them on a tablet, it doesn't matter. We, as adult humans, do not learn or retain by reading. How many of you are weekend car repairmen or weekend fixing your washer because it broke? We don't read manuals anymore. We pull it up, we look on YouTube, and we follow what we see, we practice it, and then we do it. So this new generation is not learning by reading. They don't want to read. We don't want to read. They learn by doing. So the more you can push your organization down that pyramid, the better chance you have that they're going to retain what they've learned and what they do. Especially if you go back to that chart a lot earlier where they're only qualifying on about 50% of the job. They have to learn the rest some way. So again, push them down the pyramid so that they can learn by doing. And that's challenging in our refineries or in our chemical plants where we're trying to run. We don't give them the opportunity to practice the startup, the shutdown, etc. So the learning pyramid is it's real, and it's what we see in the industry is factual. So to wrap it up, to achieve operational excellence, I think there's a component that's really missing around the operator competency piece. And what we've seen successful with our customers is true procedure clarity, aligning practice and procedure, eliminating the ambiguities and generalizations, and then efficient, effective onboarding. And that's however you can get them down the pyramid where they're practiced by doing. And then have them demonstrate their competency. I mean, I was guilty back in my days at DuPont. PSM requires us to have our operators refresh on procedures every 3 years. And we took the easy way out, and I think that's where this next quote comes from. We took the easy way out. We circulated a procedure book, and we told the operators to sign off saying they read the procedure. And we counted that as refresher training. Are they really being refreshed? Are they really learning that procedure? You know, after what I've been seeing these last 4 years, the answer is no. So take the quote out of an EHS Today article back in June of 2020. Our companies need to improve what they're doing, and they really need to be asking themselves, are you doing it for safety, for compliance, or for the true safety of your workforce? And I think the same absolutely holds true around uptimes, OEEs, running the facility. It's all around building that operator competency. So that was my last chart. Be happy to answer any questions.
Have you seen more people do it with their full training, or have you seen more people do this with like starting, shutting down a unit / getting into a turnaround, that kind of thing, as opposed to a whole training manual?
So it's a combination. We've seen both. You brought up a good point around turnarounds. A lot of our customers now are using simulation to get into a turnaround on time. I mean, again, that used to always be one of my hot buttons. Is we would plan for maintenance to start work at 7 a.m. Monday morning, and we never started work at 7 a.m. Monday morning. We were still clearing the process, waiting on a lockout. So we do have companies now using Movio for the shutdown procedures, clearing procedures, and lockouts because they can ensure standard execution. So it really depends on the customer's, what we call pain points, and where they need to improve, and that's how they're implemented. Yes?
So when you take the 15-step ambiguous procedure and you expand it to a 250-step super clear procedure, do you notice any difference in the time it takes an experienced qualified operator to do that? We've noticed a lot of fatigue when you've got to click 250 boxes. People get tired.
So the initial time may take more, but it depends. So for the new hire, you want them to take that time. You want them to learn every one of those 200 steps and how to navigate through the process to achieve all those 200 steps. But again, from a simulation standpoint, you can accelerate. They don't have to click on all 200 of those boxes. There's ways of accelerating that simulation so they just visit and then move on. Less clicking. So it really depends on the level of experience. If it's part of the 3-year refresher, it takes a lot less time to get through that 200-step procedure than that new operator that's on board.
Yep.
How much effort does it take to kind of to do something like this? I guess a lot of production units have a lot of procedures, and they may feel a little bit overwhelmed if they were going to do this for every procedure. So is it a big resource-intensive process to do this?
So we'll do a bundle of procedures. What's that mean? It could be 30, 50, 70, whatever the customer deems as a bundle of procedures. And for a first project, we recommend staying within a unit. We build a large replica of that unit and then incorporate those procedures within that unit. So let's say we do 30 procedures. We'll send engineers to the site and they'll walk those procedures with your subject matter expert. And that can take 5 days. It really depends. 3 days, 5 days, maybe 7 days of us just walking those procedures. And then we go away and we'll check in twice over a 14-week period, 16-week period. We'll check in kind of like project best practices. We want you to validate the data we have. And those check-ins may require 2 hours of your SME's time. And then after that, week 14, week 16, we deliver the entire package of simulations, digital replica, a field execution tool, the whole package. And we'll come out and we also train the whole organization on using the content. Any other questions?
Yeah, real quick. I'll get the microphone. Mark Sabell from Montemurro. Just real quick, most of us, we use an LMS system of some type to document training. And is what you're providing, is that linked to an LMS system so that competency training can be assigned and recorded?
Yes, so we have a mini LMS, I'll call it that. We have a platform in which the administrator can assign procedure, document competency, and all of that. However, we do have some customers that want us to link to their LMS system, and we have a SCORM compliant connector, and we can connect to any LMS system out there. Yep. It's funny, because again, having spent 30 years in manufacturing, the site will sometimes get these systems, whether it's an LMS, whether it's SAP, whatever it may be. And unfortunately, a lot of these systems are implemented without the end user in mind. So we do have most of our customers say, you know what, we'd rather just stay with Booyo because it's a lot easier to use than our LMS system. But to your point, yes, we can connect to an LMS.
Still have time for another question? If everyone can join me in thanking Francis for his